Minister, nobody is treating this like the house is on fire. Those are the words that 12-year-old Cara Darmody used to describe her frustration at the lack of supports for autistic people and children in Ireland. And she used these words in addressing the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Autism back in November alongside her dad Mark, when they spoke about their experiences seeking services for her brothers. And I want to welcome Cara and Mark and so many other parents and activists on autism into the gallery today. As Duncan Smith has said, since this government took office, this is the third time that we in Labour have introduced legislation or motions in the Dáil seeking to rectify the lack of services for autistic people in Ireland. In each time, when the slot on private members comes to an end, the institutional hostility that is shown by the state to parents, to their children, to adults with autism, autistic adults, that hostility remains and goes unaddressed. And I don't think anyone in this House is comfortable to hear about autistic children being denied access to education, being denied vital supports. I don't think any of us are comfortable hearing from parents their deep concern and despair at the prospects for their children who, once they age into young adulthood, if they're autistic, and the lack of supports and services for them. And it does appear to us in Labour that nobody is treating this like the house is on fire. But the buck stops with government, and we welcome the fact that you and government are not opposing our motion. But we need to see action on this. And we hear so many times from young autistic adults, from older autistic adults, saying how they were failed as children and their concerns that children with autism, autistic children, are currently still being failed by the education system. I do want to commend and thank the national organisations who are working to strengthen and improve services. Groups like As I Am, like FUS Ireland, groups in my own constituency, like Neurodiversity, Irish Town, Ringsend and Pearse Street, Autism D6 and D6W, and the brilliant Ranelagh Rockets group with Ranelagh Gales GAA. Thanks to their campaigning and the passion of so many parents and so many communities, we're starting to see progress in schooling, and that's acknowledged. And I'm seeing classes opening up in my own constituency, in Harold's Cross Educate Together Secondary, Stratford National School, St Mary's Belmont Avenue, Templeogue College and the New Spiriton School in Templeogue. These sort of improvements will be a lifeline to children and parents, but we're coming from a very low base. And all around the country I'm hearing stories and experiences from people like those involved in the brilliant Rainbow Club in Cork, like the Special Needs Action Group I met with in Athy in Kildare on Monday. Groups of parents who've come together because they are in despair at the lack of services offered to them and to their children. We are seeing, if I may say, Minister, a real failure with the Section 37A process, which should and could be used to secure education places, to secure additional special classes. In the last since 2020, we haven't seen the Section 37A process being used. And that period, 3 years, is a long time in the life of a child when there's an established need for so many children in so many areas. You know, other examples of failure, more than 1 in 3 approved posts in the Children's Disability Network teams is lying vacant. So children are languishing on waiting lists for assessments for years, and that's one of the issues we really focus on in our motion. We recognise that getting an assessment is not a panacea either, and indeed parents will be well aware of this, because unspent budgets and a staffing crisis across CDNTs means that the only meaningful effect of being seen is that a child is no longer recorded as awaiting care in official figures, when in reality they're still continuing not to receive any adequate service. Yesterday I hosted Ukrainian Action Ireland, and I heard the experience of Ukrainians here who inform us that, again, parents of neurodiverse children in the Ukrainian community are dismayed at lack of services for their children. We are hearing from staff who are burning out and leaving for better paid jobs. As Duncan says, we in Labour have sought to address this by looking to increase pay for Section 39 workers and those in the community and voluntary sector. But we're hearing about annual staff turnover rates of 80% across CDNTs and across community and voluntary sector workers, because again there's just such dismay, such frustration at lack of services, at lack of coordination of services. So again, Minister, and it's good to see both of you here, both ministers here, we do welcome government's approach to our motion, but that's simply not enough. It's nice to reconnect with the familiar faces of the parents and activists in our gallery, but I'm deeply sad that there's a need for the parents and activists to come out again on this issue. We hear from parents who are just exhausted fighting for services for their children, and despairing of services for young adults, for autistic adults too. It's really shameful that we're debating this issue again, that we're putting forward these issues again, and that, as Cara Darmody put it so eloquently, that nobody is treating this issue like the house is on fire.